So if I become transgender, will I win any bids? Will I be considered, because I'm white, I'm of European descent, I don't know what I'm considered as far as monetarily upper middle class. So I have nothing really, there's no real politician that's looking out for me. So if I become a transgender, will I fall into that minority class that will give me a little bit of an edge? Speaking of edge, where's my knife? Let's do this.
Because in either game, life or football, the margin for error is so small. I mean, 1/2 a step too late or too early, and you don't quite make it. 1/2 second too slow, too fast, you don't quite catch it. The inches we need are everywhere around us. Hell yeah. They're in every break of the game, every minute, every second.
Leg out.
What up, everybody? Good evening. Well, I guess you may be listening to this on the way to work, so good evening. I went to, let's see, what was I going to talk about? I just wrote it down, and what I do is I make some notes, so just as I get distracted, it's kind of like when you're driving somewhere, you know the way, but I set my navigation just because if you get a phone call or you just you're not paying attention or you're doing a podcast or anything that might distract you from driving that I don't recommend, you just have that going in the background and you're like, oh yeah, that's what I'm supposed to be doing. So let me look at my notes real quick. Let's see if it clicks in my brain. Okay, not that. Not that. Do you have a funny? Yeah. What was I going to talk about? It was kind of funny. Oh, it's getting there. It's traveling up the spine. I wanted to segue into gun control because that's what everybody I talk to is talking about. I think I got it. Oh, okay, I got it. I was buying some bar stools, and see, if I had a nice desk right now, as you hear my navigation in the background, I would have all my itinerary ready to go and just check them off one tick at a time, one box at a time. So anyway, my wife has me get some bar stools, right? So I just go on like Craigslist or one of those apps, get it now or whatever. And there's a certain part of Orange. It's a horrible part of Orange, the city of Orange. It's weird. It used to be a nice city, and now it's not so nice. So I'm driving around, and after a 12-hour day of working, so I got all this energy to go look for bar stools. And I say, okay, give me the address. So I get the address. I go to the address. And I knock on the door. It's one of these addresses that's hard to find. There's no parking. I'm in an F-250 with a long bed, extra cab, 22 foot long, I think. It's actually longer than a Lincoln Continental, the older ones. So I'm there, and I'm knocking on the door, and I'm trying to make a lot of noise to let people know, hey, I'm not sneaking around. I'm here to give you money, not to take things. So anyway, guy comes to the door. He's probably like 75 years old, Hispanic gentleman, and it looks like he's surprised to see somebody that wasn't holding a Watchtower magazine. So he explained to me, nobody here is selling chairs, and so now I feel like a criminal. So what is he thinking? And I'm like, that's kind of weird, why would somebody put the wrong address? And he's all, but there's a house behind me, and maybe maybe they're the ones that have the chair. So again, somebody else burying the lead. So I go to the house behind him. The problem is there's a door, you have to go through a gate in a bad area, and it looks like nobody's been there through the side gate, because you enter from the other side for the back of the house. and I could be walking in on somebody's barbecue or whatever, so it's Sunday and like great. So I'm knocking on the door and you hear the TV going on the inside of the house, and a guy comes to the door. He's watching the football game. It's the fourth quarter of the Cowboys. He's wearing a Cowboy jersey, so I'm sure he's happy as a clam to to talk to me. So I go, hey, are there any chairs, or how are those chairs doing, right? And because we narrowed it down to it's his house. And he's like, no, I'm not selling any chairs. He's right, he was not selling any chairs, so who am I to argue? And he's like, well, maybe the neighbor is, because the neighbor's moving. I'm like, okay. I don't know how you know that, because it doesn't seem like anybody talks to anybody around here. So I'm like, okay, fine. I'll get out of here. I'll close the gate on the way out, so I don't let either somebody out or somebody in. And so I close the gate, talk to my wife. I'm like, okay, where is this guy? And she's like, well, I'll send you a picture of him, because he sent her a picture of him for whatever reason. And he looks like, I don't want to say the guy that actually hijacked the plane. Let's just say if something goes down, he would be a suspect. That's all I'm saying. So, and it's a full profile of him in a suit. And it's like, why would you send, I'm thinking, is this guy fishing? He's just asking these random people to come over, and he's checking me out from across the street. So it's kind of weird. So I get in the truck. I'm like, I'm tired. I gotta go home. So I'm driving down the street, it's a real skinny street, cars on both sides. And then my wife calls me back, and she says, oh, he's outside. I'm like, well, oh, great. Would he give the wrong address? So I stopped, I put in reverse, and I'm backing down the skinny street, cars on both sides. It's Sunday, there's kids walking everywhere. And then I see the guy, so I thought it was the neighbor's house that was moving. And, he didn't flag me down, he just stares at me. So I back to where he is, and I get out, and he's like, are you here for the chairs? I'm like, well, he's all right. And then he said, he told me he was looking for Angie, my wife. And I'm like, well, my wife just described the truck I was in. It's kind of random that somebody's backing down the street, and after notifying you, and so I know I'm not dealing with a full deck, so I'm like, whatever. And he said, oh, he'll go get the chairs. And I go, where are they? And he's like, oh, in my room. I go, well, where's your room? Like, what house? And he's like, oh, that back house, the one I just came from. And I go, I was just there and knocked on the door, and the gentleman that answered said that nobody, or he said that he didn't have chairs for sale. And he's like, oh, well, I'm a roommate, and I'm moving out. So I'm thinking, who's more dumb? The guy that's selling the chairs that doesn't tell his roommate, hey, somebody's on their way, or the guy that answers the door and says, no, I'm not selling any chairs. Well, you might want to check with your roommate that is selling stuff, and I'm not the first thing sold, nor the last, and I'm sure it's not a surprise. It's just, I really didn't know who to be mad at, and ultimately, I guess I'm mad at myself just for, just put myself in a position where I have to deal with these people. From next time, it's Pier 1 Imports. My time's money. So in any event, I got the chairs. Chairs were nice, and people are stupid. That's the moral of the story. Now I'll move on to gun control. I was talking to one of my customers, and she was going through something horrific. So I don't blame her for reading the news and reading all the bad stuff that's coming out of it. Her husband's having big problems, and so she's just talking about guns and the problem they're in, and why don't we ban them? And then I wouldn't think anything of it, except for prior to me talking to her, I talked to another customer over in Toluca Lake, a Hollywood guy, and we're good friends. And he was talking about crazy guns and the sort, and I'm like, well, my wife just got a gun, and I think it's a good thing for her to be armed if I'm not home, and some loser pulls up and bangs on the door, and so that way she don't have to hit him over the head with the fireplace poker. She'll have a pistol and just brandishing it usually resolves the situation. So I don't want to argue with my customers because look, politics is nice as long as you could do it on good terms. Because the second you become argumentative over it, the person you're talking to, you're just doing it to make yourself feel good. They're not going to listen to you, nor are you going to listen to them. But sometimes if you give a good answer for why you believe what you believe with anything, religion, that's where that term comes from. But in your political beliefs, sometimes people are on the fence about things, or they just don't know. And so I think people need to convince other people what they feel is right. And usually my argument is this when it comes down to all that stuff. It's the old Elon Musk thing. We have traffic problems. Let's not get a Republican involved. Let's not get a Democrat. Let's get somebody that knows about cars and traffic, Elon Musk, and let's have him tell us what's the best thing to do, and then let's do it. Maybe you can get a second opinion, but don't look for, my Republican guy wants to do this. Well, my Democratic leader says we should do this. Mine's better. No, mine's better. And because you're going to look for the arguments in the ether to support your belief. So now when you're coming to gun control, that same thing exists. Well, the Republicans say, more guns, less crime. And the Democrats say if there are guns, especially AR, assault rifle guns, more people will die in these mass shootings. And, if we could just bring somebody to the table, the wisest person we have, almost, mix of an economist, what's that guy's name? I know he's a criminal psychologist, and all these people come to the table and just hack it out. And I think one of the things I want them to hack out is, okay, are we concerned about how many deaths from assault rifles each year, or how many deaths from guns each year, and what is the purpose of the Second Amendment? Because the Second Amendment isn't just to defend yourself from robbers. So there's an underlying thing that usually gets missed in all this. So I think you just get all these people, they come together, and they kind of hash it out and say, okay, statistically, what's better? How many governments have kind of strong-armed their people? How many deaths has that over history? Has an armed citizenry ever stopped itself from an oppressive government? Has an unarmed city like Washington, D.C., is that safer that only the criminals have guns? Because it's illegal, so basically the outstanding citizens can't be armed, so it's pretty much a soft target everywhere. Just hack all these out. But again, if these smart people, as long as they don't have an ulterior motive, they say, okay, this is what we decide is good, because in life there's risk. We already have 2 million guns out there, XYZ, or the opposite. And I'm willing to live or die by that. But I want smart people to be involved, and not people's egos, because the egos are not just the right wing, the gun wackos. It's people now. They've been in a great environment for so long, a great country, that they feel like no bad can happen. They just want to ride it out, I notice this with people that don't have children. They're like, hey, everything seems fine. Let's not rock the boat. But I think slowly things get worse and worse and worse. But they're okay with it because they're not trying to establish anything. They're just riding it out. So you need to take all these things into consideration. But man, if we could take our politics out of it, because the politics could be more